welcome to this video. Today I'm going to talk about a masterpiece by Harold Sherman called The Dead Are Alive, They Can and Do Communicate With You. Now, this book was published in 1986, and Harold Sherman actually wrote the book You Live After You Die in 1945. He was a prolific writer, and this book is considered by many of his readers as one of his greatest masterpieces. And if you don't know who Harold Sherman was, let me just share that with you real quick. He was a psychical researcher, a prolific writer, and he devoted 70 years of his life into studying and researching the psychic phenomena and also ESP, that is extrasensory perception. And he also founded the ESP Association. Okay, now why is this book amazing? It not only gives you accounts and evidence that the dead are alive even after a physical death, and they can be heard and they can be seen, but it also teaches you, it gives you tools to the reader with which how you can also communicate with the other side. And this book has accounts of so many psychic researchers and their communication with the other side. Thousands and thousands are presented in this book, but also it has accounts of ordinary people who went out and got this book and investigated, and they were able to find evidence of life after death. So if you are interested into the paranormal, into parapsychology, the afterlife, then I highly recommend Harold Sherman's books to you. I recently discovered Harold Sherman, and I cannot believe I didn't come across his books before. If you are into the afterlife at all and parapsychology and you read such books, then it's very common to come across authors like Dr. Raymond Moody and Dr. Raymond Moody wrote Life After Life in the 70s, and this is a revised edition that I'm reading, but I do believe he came out with the book sometime in the 70s as well, Harold Sherman. So like I was saying, if you're into reading this field and learning, then it's very common to come across such authors, and better late than never. I'm really glad that I came across this book. Now, at the very beginning, I forgot to tell you guys one thing. Harold Sherman came into light. He became really popular after conducting his psychical experiments, telepathic experiments with a very well-known Arctic explorer, Sir Hubert Wilkins. They basically conducted telepathic experiments spanning for 5 months. The duration was for 5 months, and they found how it's possible for the human mind to pick up psychic impressions from another individual mind. They actually proved telepathy through this book, and the findings were published in a book in the 40s, I believe 1942, and it was co-authored by both of them, Harold Sherman and Sir Hubert Wilkins, and the book was called Thoughts Through Space. I was reading up on it and I found it really fascinating. So at the very beginning of this book, there is a very beautiful poem called What is Death? And I thought, let me just read it out for you. Okay, it's called Death is Nothing at All by Henry Scott Holland. I'm going to read it out, and I'll also share a little analysis with you that I found online, and it's a profound poem. It's frame-worthy, so hear me out. Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away to the next room. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we still are. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in the easy way which you always used. Put no difference in your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me. Pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without effect, without the trace of a shadow on it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same that it ever was. There is absolute unbroken continuity. Why should I be out of mind because I am out of sight? I am but waiting for you, for an interval, somewhere, very near, just around the corner, all is well. That's at the beginning of this book, and let me just share a little bit of analysis on the poem. So it does characterize afterlife as a seamless continuation of life, because I really believe that death is only a transition. It encourages mourners to remember the departed with joy and to maintain their connection with laughter, through laughter, conversation, and prayer. There's a profound message in this poem. It contrasts the finality of physical death and the enduring bonds of love and memory. So it offers a very positive and comforting perspective on life beyond death. Okay, so now this book, let me just share a few things from the book. I have my Kindle open on my phone, and you can get the soft paper or hardback copy of this book. I usually get all my books on Kindle these days because it's convenient to carry it around, and you don't really need the device. I do have the device. It's always near my bedstand because I have a habit of reading before I go to bed. But Kindle is really useful because you can just have it on the go on your phone as well. Okay, so this book has 20 chapters, and I wanted to share some highlights and annotations from the book with you guys. Now, we have to keep in mind that this book was written in the 80s when there were no the developments in technology were not as high and advanced as they are today, obviously. So the psychic researchers in this book made contact with the other side using a tape recorder. And I'll tell you what, it starts with the accounts of AJ. He's a widower who lost his wife, and he really wanted to communicate with his wife's spirit. And because he was mourning and he really wanted to know that she's okay on the other side, he couldn't imagine his life without her. So what happens is that on his way to work one day, he happened to pick up a copy of Harold Sherman's book, this very book, and he read it and followed the instructions, and lo and behold, he sought out to reach out to his wife. He started conducting EVPs, that is electronic voice phenomena, through the help of a tape recorder. And even though it took him 3 months to finally communicate with his wife, and by the way, the book does share that he not only communicated with his wife, but he also made contact with his deceased nephew, who had passed away when he was really young. But in between these months, he actually picked up thousands of EVPs of different spirits, and some of them seemed lost. They were not even aware that they're not alive anymore. So, well, when you read it, you'll know, but I feel that maybe it was his purpose in life to help them move on. He did achieve that with the help of another psychic, I believe. He helped them to move on. All these spirits, you can call them restless souls. And something that I found really interesting is when his wife made contact with him, he asked her and also his nephew, can you see these souls around him who are communicating with him on a regular basis once he started doing EVPs? And they said that they can't see them, his wife, but she can, even his nephew, but they can hear him. Now, the reason why it took him time to communicate with his wife is because she was on a higher realm than these spirits were. And in a way, it's fascinating, but also kind of creepy to realize that some of us really don't move on even after we let go of this body, and how it's important to get to know yourself during this lifetime itself, the divinity within you, so you're not lost and confused when you go over to the other side as to what happened, and you refuse to accept your bodily death. So I think that was his higher purpose in life. But oh yeah, and he got in touch with the author of this book. When he started his journey on communicating with the other side, he had correspondence with Harold Sherman through letters, and Harold Sherman basically guided AJ to conduct the EVPs and make contact with his wife, which he successfully did. And there are also accounts of an amazing lady called Gladys Child. She was a gifted psychic medium, and she was born into a family of clairvoyants, so everybody had some or the other psychic gifts, and basically her gifts were encouraged since childhood. Her gifts were encouraged since childhood. She was clairaudient. She could basically hear and also see, but she could predominantly hear spirits. And it shows how she shares how she started doing EVPs and how she successfully was able to make contact. And throughout her life, she made friends with these spirits. So what she would do was, after dinner, after her family was done having dinner, every night she designated a particular room in her house where she would carry out these experiments. She sat with her tape recorder and it was quiet in the room, and she followed this every day at the same time for an hour or so. And gradually, once she started making contact with the other side, the time limit for the EVP sessions increased to 2 hours, to 3 hours, like that. And we're not talking about faint whispers coming through. I believe the tape recorders were more clear, and there was no other disturbance when she was doing these recordings. It was completely pin drop silence. So she ended up recording not only her, but other people as well throughout this book. You will read accounts of how they conducted EVPs, and they picked up thousands of ghost voices, spirits of the dead, not only random messages from them, but important information and also information about who they were in their lifetimes. So I believe there was a man who also performed this research, EVPs, in a lab with other psychical researchers, and they actually documented the names of the spirits, their age, where they died, and the manner in which they died at times. So all of it was well documented. And Gladys Child, coming back to Gladys Child, she made friends with these spirits who came through to communicate with her. And some of them had names as well, and they would guide her throughout her life, and they gave her important messages not only about what was transpiring in and around her, but also sometimes randomly. There's an instance in this book when she was at the chemist getting some medication, or I don't know, she was standing there, and someone she knew, this lady, was there as well picking up a medicine for her son. And all of a sudden she was talking to the son, like, you know, just exchanging pleasantries like hi, hello, or something like that. And the spirit came up and actually told her, Gladys Child, that this boy would sadly pass away in a year's time. And she didn't think much of it, but that really did transpire. And the reason as to why this happened was because this boy sadly took his own life for sometimes you just don't know the reason. And what she wanted to convey was, spirits are not wrong. When they communicate with you, they actually have the power to know the past and the future as well. And these spirits whom she was in touch with, there were no negative spirits. Like I said, she made friends with them. She made friends with their spirit guides, and some of these spirits, they had names as well. So, you know, just how we have friends in our lifetimes, they became her friends. They would communicate with her and give her all these profound messages. And even though some people sometimes would warn her, don't do all of this, don't do EVP because it's not safe, you don't know what comes through. And I agree, sometimes you really don't, if you don't know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And Gladys Child shared that she did have 1 or 2 negative experiences, but rest of them were not negative. And she never felt discouraged from communicating with the other side. And even when her loved ones would pass away and she would be at their funeral, they would come through. Like, there was this old gentleman, when he passed away, she was waiting to hear from him at the funeral. And when she did not, she was just wondering what's up. Like, is he okay on the other side? And he did come, but after some time, he did visit her, and he told her that he was actually busy enjoying the gospel music. He was in awe of the whole gesture, like the funeral and the sentiments of people performing for him. They were singing for him, and he was enjoying that. So sometimes the dead are really not at their gravesite. That's not where they lurk, because they find it actually pretty boring. They can be anywhere, anytime they wish. And I found that really, really interesting. So let me read something that I found fascinating. Okay, it has to do with communicating with the other side. And Harold Sherman actually shared accounts of a Hollywood producer who also devoted a significant portion of his life into studying spirit voices. Bill Welsh was the author of Talks with the Dead, and Harold Sherman actually had booked him to be on their body, mind, and spirit healing workshop program, but sadly, Bill Welsh passed away. So let me just tell you a little bit from this book about him and how he communicated with the dead. A noted Hollywood screenwriter, Bill had devoted many hours to spirit voice recording. And as a tribute to him, they published a William Welsh Memorial Research Division of their ESP Foundation. And they have made his instructive message available to all spirit voice researchers. So there is a whole chapter on this. It's called The Listening Equipment Needed. So this is how he conducted EVP. So let me just go ahead and read that for you. It's very interesting. It's raining outside. I love this weather because it's perfect to discuss anything related to the paranormal or watch a spooky movie and all that good stuff. Okay, so let me get back to what I was reading. So he says, I use the microphone to record my own voice on tape as I invite friends or loved ones, if present, to respond. You must be prepared to receive voices and fragmentary messages or words from strangers and wandering spirits, as well as those you may know are no voices at all, because it does take a lot of patience. When I have finished sending out the call for communicators, I let the tape continue running from 5 to 10 minutes during this time, but when I played back the tape, if voices appear on it, they have magnetically been projected. This is one of the still an unsolved mystery. You will encounter what is called white noise or spirit voices when they are present. They must be detected through the static or interference. For this reason, it is often difficult to make them out or decipher words and meanings. It will help if you start listening. If you start your listening period with a brief meditation or a simple prayer. Oh yeah, I forgot to share this. Gladys Child also had a spiritual practice, as in she would pray before doing the EVPs. And I think this is mentioned not only in this book, but in a lot of other books I've read. They have always stated how important it is to have a spiritual practice. As in, you don't have to be super religious or anything like that. What I mean when I say this is that you should have a good frame of mind before doing EVPs, and you should make sure that your surrounding space is positive and you're not going through any negative emotions, because like attracts like, and you don't want to attract anything negative. You want to make sure your space is sacred, have an incense going, or just be in a positive mindset before doing it, basically. Okay, so he says it will help if you start listening with a brief meditation or a simple prayer to create a more receptive atmosphere, free of such emotions as grief, apprehension, or doubt. Just relax and let what will happen, happen. You will find after a little experimentation that you will have to train your hearing in order to discern voices which exist in the background of the white noise and can only be brought out through repeated playbacks. Someday, electronic experts working on this problem believe they will be able to filter out much of the white noise, and communication between worlds will be greatly facilitated. I guess we're still waiting for that day. Okay, so the best time and place to record must be determined by you. I have found, obviously, that the quietest room in the house or office is most ideal. The tape recorder will pick up every sound through the open mic. When you have made contact with the spirit voices, the spirit entities can apparently follow you wherever you go. I was able to give a demonstration for this for the National Enquirer staff using their own equipment to prove that these communications had no identification with my instrumentation. I should impress upon you, however, that it often requires a great amount of time and patience and determination to get such results. I have devoted endless hours not only to recording these spirit voices, but to keeping a written record of the names and messages which came through, carefully dated and filed away with all tapes for future study. So it emphasizes how you should turn the recording volume on full and which frequency to keep it on. I do agree with one thing. I have done EVPs before. Actually, me and my dad, we received our first class 1 EVP in 2013, where we recorded voices responding to us not only in English but also in my mother tongue Bengali. And basically we were dumbfounded because it was by chance that we did the EVPs and we never expected the voices to be recorded, but it did come through, and I still have the EVP till date. It basically said I am there, but like in a faint voice, like I am there. And also in Bengali, Amiachi. That means I am here in Bengali. So that was really profound, and maybe I'll make a video on that separately. So I thought I will share a few more highlights from this book, which I found really interesting. So let me just get to that. Okay, so remember I was talking about AJ at the beginning of the video where he was a widower and he wanted to make contact with his wife. Well, it has been explained to him. Let me just read it out. It has been explained to AJ that those who die lacking a belief in the afterlife are still clinging to the earth plane. They are able to see and hear those in this life. Their body forms seem to be the same, and they cannot understand why they can no longer communicate. It is a frustrating experience, and without direction from some source, they are inclined to remain in limbo for an indefinite period. The practice of some religious people in praying for the souls of the departed would appear to have validity, since we know now that thought can be transmitted and received, and their influence may well be of aid to those, help to those who have gone on in making adjustment to the next existence. You know, lighting a candle does help our loved ones. They can hear our thoughts, so if you pray for them, it really does. We should never underestimate the power of a prayer, because it really does help the spirits of loved ones and even spirits of those who passed away and might be lost and might not even be aware that they are no longer living. Let me share some more highlights which I found really interesting. Okay, so it also says in the book, each one of us can be our own medium. We can call upon whomever we will and make our independent discoveries about spirit life and the nature of that world itself. This is the first time in the history of mankind that what has been considered paranormal has been placed within the reach of all who wish to explore. Serious study of the voices of the dead recorded, have led many to believe that man continues in a fully conscious state after death. It is also significant that anyone can record voices from beyond. We do not have to be a psychic superstar to communicate with the dead. In the past, we have had to place our trust in mediums to put us in touch with the unseen world, but now you have to be receptive, and many people have communicated with the other side. Let me read something else. Oh my goodness, could this slide back and forth anymore? Hold on, let me just... Okay, so those on the other side want to communicate with us for several reasons. They are anxious to let us know that death is not the end. In the past, they have tried to show us this through miracles which have chiefly originated in religious context. Although for a number of people this was sufficient, for more it was not. Trance mediums have also claimed to be in communication with the spirit world. In some cases, evidence suggests that they were, even though there was no way to prove it. But Now we have the miracle of the voices on tape, EVPs. And that is a miracle. Those on the other side meet us through our electronic equipment. The dead also want to comfort their loved ones, the bereaved. If we can be convinced our dead are not dead, but are busy with a new life in another dimension, and we will in time see them again, then we can only wish them well and feel joy. That's really true. If you've lost a loved one, and it is natural to feel sad and you might be mourning their loss, but that doesn't really help them on the other side. What helps them if you pray for them and you decide to live your best life, because that is what they want for you. They become our guardian angels when they transition. And I think that's why it's so important to read these books, because information like this, you won't find other people talking about it, like your next door neighbor, unless you're very lucky and they're into all of this in this field of study and knowledge. But that's why it's so profoundly vital that you study such books and you understand things from a spiritual perspective, so you are doing a favor to not only your loved ones who have passed, but also to yourself. And I always do this. I always light candles in the morning, in the evening, even before I go to bed, of course in a safe place, for peace and love, to wish our loved ones peace and love, those who have passed away, especially for my mom. And in general, it is pure substance fire, and it's a good practice to pray and light a candle for your loved one. Well, I personally do follow that. Yeah, and it also says, as you progress in your efforts at communication, you will become aware that you are developing special relationships with some of those on the other side. Because this author says those who have spoken repeatedly with him through EVPs, he feels a deep affection for them. They come to look upon him as a friend, and that feeling is mutual. And after a length of time, you may discover that you have a guide, a special guide that will help you with recordings. And those on the other side operate at a faster vibration, a higher frequency than we, and it is possible that they have to change this when they enter our sphere to speak through a tape recorder. If they do this repeatedly without a proper rest period between, it could affect them adversely. And then there's a question that is often asked: is it dangerous to come in close contact with those who have died? The paranormal, especially the dead and the world of the dead, has always been surrounded by mystery. What is unknown to us often appears fearful, and I'm sure this is another reason the spirit world is trying to communicate with us. They want to break through the chains of superstition with which we have bound ourselves. Since that is a world to which we will all sooner or later go and call home, it is wise to learn as much as possible about it before we move there. Having said that, I must also say there are some individuals who should not become involved in trying to make personal contact. Like those who are hysterical, who have unresolved fears, highly impressionable, they should totally stay away from all this. And the author also says how he thinks that good is a stronger force than evil. And I place my faith and trust in thousands of messages expressing love and goodwill from the other side. Okay, you know how I mentioned Gladys Child? Well, let me tell you a little bit more about her. She shared her documented reports with Harold Sherman for this book, and she said, I am making this information publicly available for the first time because I want to help people to know that death is not the end, that there is a great adventure awaiting each one of us when our time comes to leave this earth. And Mrs. Childs was a dynamic woman. She was a psychic all her life. She was born in South Africa. She was a daughter of an official in the British government's highway department, and her mother was also a psychic. And she also said, let me just share that. My personal feeling is that the ability to talk to the dead through our tape recorder is a gift from God. Spirit communication. Properly used, it can benefit all mankind. Some individuals feel more comfortable in keeping their feet firmly anchored in the hard facts of materialism. Others, believing life can and should be transcendental, look for the stars around and within themselves. As they start to explore these new worlds, they learn that there is no beginning or ending of life. Our world and the world of spirit interpenetrates at many points. We discover there's only life. Okay, so Gladys Child is also often asked, when a person dies, how does he know where he is, where to go, and what to do? To which he responds, my understanding is that we are met by relatives, friends, and others known as greeters, spirits familiar with the spirit world, who help the newcomers to adjust to the spirit world and the traumatic change from the physical, teaching them how to transport their spiritual bodies and accept the transition. Now, I did make a book review on Dolores Cannon's book, Between Death and Life, and there is a whole chapter on greeters there, where our loved ones come through to this realm to help us with our transition when we are passing away. So she says, let me state that again. I don't do anything in preparation for a spirit visitation. No preparation at all. The spirits of loved ones come to me at their own convenience. I never know when they are coming. The timing is theirs. I may be watching TV, reading the paper, or working on my news copy. I might be in church or riding a friend's car. I have had a couple of spirits come to me while en route somewhere, walking or riding. I can be in the supermarket or just anywhere. I never know. They come to me, I repeat, in their time. That is unless I'm at a funeral, where I often get communication as the spirit is still very close to its earthly life. And if the person has adjusted to the transition since the time of death and the funeral service. So this is by Gladys Child. And I'm still reading this book. It's a fascinating read. It is life-changing. It will really expand your horizon and help you to get rid of a lot of preconceived notions of the afterlife. When you read books like these, you get rid of fear and all the filters that you have about the afterlife, about dying, about death, about who you are as a person, your soul, because we're so much more than the body. And I thank God that we are, because this epiphany really struck me when I went to identify my mom's body, because I lost her to COVID. I was her sole caregiver, and it was very tragic. But when I stood in front of her body, I thank God that we are not just merely a body. The body should be taken care of because it's the temple that our soul resides in, but that is not the only identification you have. You're, sorry about the honking. You're so much more than just this body. So I'm enjoying reading this book. I was reading other books in between. I do that at times, but this is a study. It's not just a book. It is actually research. And as you read with each page, you're going to absorb so much of knowledge and be able to share that with your loved ones and hopefully someone who needs to hear it. So that'll be all for today. I am enjoying this book, and I hope you will too. I am willing to read. I'm actually looking forward to read other books by Harold Sherman, and you can find them online. You can check out his books. I got his books from Amazon on Kindle, and I'm sure you can get them in any bookstore wherever you are. If you can't, I will link it down in the description below. And if you like this video, go ahead and share it with someone who might need to hear the messages in this video, or is looking for a good read, or if you yourself are interested in this book, I highly recommend it. And I'm very happy that you took out time to check out this video. I will be sharing more book reviews as I read more myself. I enjoyed making this video. I enjoyed reading with you, and I'm sending you so much love and appreciation, and I'm happy that you're here. I wish you well. I hope you're spiritually happy always, and never give up. No matter what you're going through in life, that's what I want to tell you. Don't give up, because even if you think you're alone, you're not alone, because you have a whole spiritual family out there. They're rooting for you, as are your loved ones on the other side as well. So that will be all for me today. Do subscribe to my channel if you liked the video, and if not, I'll try and do better next time. Take care till next time, and I'll see you guys soon.